Hello, welcome back to Simon's Trading Channel. Happy Friday to you. I hope you've got that Friday feeling and you've enjoyed your week and I'm looking forward to your weekend. Thank you for joining me, I appreciate it. And if you like this video, please like and subscribe. So, as it's a Friday, that means that CME will be closing in just 2.25 hours. And I think you can see, having had this basically 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 weeks in a weekly downtrend. That's just a doji candle. I'm going to count that as one of these 6 coming down. It does look like, unless something disastrous happens in the next 2 hours, that this weekly closure will buck that trend. And I'll put some detail into that on lower time frames. But that weekly closure, I believe, bucks the 6-week downside trend. It doesn't mean that it's all guns blazing back to the upside, making new all-time highs. No, it doesn't mean that at all. But what it does mean is that Bitcoin is keeping itself back within this range that's somewhere between 60,000 and 75,000, which is a pretty big range. And the longer it stays there, literally the longer it stays there, the better it is for the bulls. Much like this whole segment here, which was many weeks, 3, 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 21. I mean, this is over 6 months of sideways action, more or less. But look what happened afterwards. A monumental move to the upside. And so even though, as investors and traders who want to long Bitcoin, even though we would all love to see Bitcoin break up to new all-time highs right now, it did already do 200% from this 25,000 point. So it's pretty good performance since the tail end, since autumn of 2023. Anyway, that's enough of that. I didn't really want to dwell on that. Just wanted to check in on the CME weekly candle. And as you can see, momentum is still well to the upside. So if I switch now over to a rather more complicated looking chart, but it's not really. And I'll zoom down from the weekly, and of course on Bybit, that doesn't close for another 2 days, 6 hours. We'll just have a quick peek at the daily. So you can see on the daily, so you can see the range high, range high, range low. Whoa, sorry about that. With what is really quite apparently a change in character. It's probably even more obvious on the 4 hour, which I'm going to show you in a moment. But from this uptrend, which failed here, and actually put in a classic M shape. Not that I'm not into shapes, but it's easy to look back and pick them out. So a couple of failed potential higher highs, referencing this one. It then downtrended. But at this point, and in fact it was this candle just on Wednesday, confirmed that downtrend was no longer in the same shape or form as it had been for those 6 weeks that I just mentioned on the weekly. So looking for more upside. The other interesting thing is, and I mentioned this in yesterday's video, if Bitcoin can do a bit more upside, it's likely that the momentum on the daily, my momentum indicator, which is MACD crossing the 0 line, I mean it doesn't belong to me, but it's just the one that I use in my mind. You can see that it has indeed just about crossed, although it's dependent on today's closure. So if today, Friday, can close above 65.5, and it's, you know, $1,000-ish above that, so I think there's a good chance. I don't think it's absolute, but I think there's a good chance. Then that will confirm that the MACD is crossed to the upside, the 0 line, and as I've said in a few videos now, when the daily MACD crosses above the 0 line, it might not happen straight away, like there's several days sideways here, probably a week, but crossing above the 0 line is shifting momentum back to the upside, and it tends to, at some point after that, give rise to some serious upside. So you see across there, yeah, a bit up and down, but it didn't close below, and then a big move until then, you know, and then this monumental one. So so that's very positive. That's very positive. I do feel, and it's just a feeling, that even if Bitcoin gets back up to the top of the range, let's say somewhere between, basically above this blue line, I'll show you what that blue line is in a moment, but if Bitcoin gets back above that blue line, which is like 70,000, it's actually 69,000, but in those areas, if it starts to get into the high 70s, of course there's a chance that it can go on to make an all-time high, but in a way, I prefer it if it kind of turned back down a bit and spent more time in this range, because I think more time in this range, you know, if we're talking several months within this range, then the move to the upside that would occur is probably of greater magnitude than it would be if Bitcoin breaks out in the next, say, week or two. But, you know, that's just my kind of opinion, really. It is true, though, that long periods of consolidation in Bitcoin tend to lead to monumental moves, whereas shorter periods of consolidation still leads to significant moves, but not as big as the longer periods of consolidation in the build-up to the move. So right, down to 4 hour before I run out of time. Your valuable time that I do indeed appreciate you spending with me and listening to my slightly husky voice today. Don't really know why it's so husky. So yeah, I've just got a trend line here that's picking out this low and this low on the 4 hour, and a little target which is the midpoint of the top half, and it does come in around 69,000. It's obviously a range, it's not just a line, but I think Bitcoin could pull back from anywhere between where it is now and there, but as long as probably this area isn't violated on 4 hours / daily closures, and it's coming in at 63,000. As long as that's maintained, this trend line will remain intact, i.e. the trend, which is quite clearly to the upside on the lower time frames. And then as long as that continues, then the top of this range comes into danger, and then we'll see what happens from there. With all these things, let's just be very positive. Let's be uber positive. Let's say over the next week or so, Bitcoin does this, right? If you see that response, it's very likely going to remain within the range for another probably couple of weeks, or week. However, if you see this, way more likely to break to the upside, way more likely. So, I mean, that's a long time down the road. That's like well into June. So, there'll be many videos before then, and I will be coming at you loud and clear, I hope, every night until then. So on that note, I'm going to leave you all alone. Thank you for listening and indeed viewing. And yeah, again, if you wouldn't mind liking and subscribing, that would be marvellous. It is a new channel, and so the more subscribers I get, the better. And I appreciate it. And if you don't enjoy the videos, there'll be another one tomorrow. So do something else. Okay, take care. Bye-bye, and enjoy what's rest of your Friday evening.